Hey, hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the show. I'm Joe, and I get to be the host again today. This is the best part, honestly, of my every week. And today, last night, I couldn't sleep. I was just giddy. I'm like, oh my goodness. I have the honor and the great privilege of spending time with, I'm going to call him the maker of Happen. The maker, you got a new nickname today. Dr. Michael Baston, president of Cuyahoga Community College, aka
Tri-C.
You got it. You got it. Thanks for joining us today and welcome to the show, my friend.
Dr. Joe, I'm so happy to be on the show. I really admire all the good things you're doing.
Oh, fantastic. Off the record, we got to talk off the record here. How's your turkey bowling average?
There's a lot of new things I learned when I came out here. Turkey bowling. I never had a pierogi before, so now there's a whole lot of things being in the heartland that you learn when you come from the Northeast.
I saw that and about fell out of my chair. I'm like, what has the world come to? We're turkey bowling. Hey, I also need to point something out right out of the gates. We had the chance to talk shortly after you were appointed as Tri-C's fifth president. And you told me something that was pretty bold at that time. And I wondered at the time, okay, is this guy just a talker or is he actually a doer? You said Tri-C will become something like the workforce epicenter of the universe or something like that. What was that claim?
That this college and this community would be the career capital of the state of Ohio as we move to be the career capital of the world. And we do that by making sure that our students are what we call real world ready, that the world better be ready for them because they're going to be ready for any of the challenges in the world and the work environment that they face.
Wow. And you've said that publicly, which means that you have to stand resolute in a strategic, like with some strategic momentum. And you are in the middle. I've been on one of your campuses and just felt the gravitas, if you will, that full scale strategic transformation process that is underway. Tell us a little bit about it. And what are you excited to become? Because you're not there yet.
Right.
You're becoming.
Well, we made three big bets. Bet number one, that if we developed a culture of clarity, that would actually lift our institution regionally and make us more of a powerhouse. So we created in our academic programming a school model where we took all of our hundreds of academic programs and put them into 5 schools so that the students have clarity about what programs that they can get in, where does it lead in terms of their economic mobility and the opportunities that actually happen in this region. And we did that not only with the actual degree programs, but also with our workforce programs, so that level of clarity shows people how they can begin with the end in mind. The second big bet that we made was that if we redesign the student experience and we redesign the employee experience, that those redesigns could make us a more institution that was efficient and effective and more impactful. And so redesigning advising, redesigning the enrollment process, streamlining it in major ways, using Lean Six Sigma as a way to move and to analyze and to streamline and to move from 141 steps to 13. It's that kind of intentional sort of work. And then thinking about the employee experience as well. How do you make sure that the employees feel that they too are being educated and supported and nurtured? And our third big bet was about strengthening our value proposition. And the way we decided to strengthen our value proposition is to focus on partnerships that allowed us to make sure that students would be able to demonstrate their learning through applied learning opportunities, making sure that their skills were visible, not only to themselves, but to potential employers. And even if they decide to be entrepreneurs, they still need the kinds of practical applied learning that allows them to be successful in those spaces.
So
those three big bets are what is really leading the transformation of our institution.
So good. I mean, just right out of the gates, clarity. Sometimes I walk onto campus and I see what is most important, but people are confused all over the place. So it takes leadership to actually like ground it and get people paying attention to what is most in demand, right? Creating relevance, right? I want to talk more about just that relevance and how that relates to partnerships, right? Because sometimes we get that the cart in front of the horse.
Well,
We're driving programs without real significant partnerships. Go.
well, understanding today's students is the number one responsibility of educational institutions. And if we're just going to thrust on them what we think should be, we're creating educational malpractice. The fact is, we need to respect students first and foremost. And what that means is we got to respect their time and their money. Traditional higher ed offers rigidity, offers these compressed schedules, offers you do it our way. Well, today's student expects that we're going to have multiple modalities. Today's students expect that they're going to be able to get a shorter term credential, a stackable credential, that they're going to be able to be on a path that makes sense for them. And so, traditional higher ed wants the recognition for the institution. Well, today's students want to be recognized as having an idea of the education they want the way they want it. So it is really looking at the way in which we've been so rigid and unresponsive as higher education to say, hey, we recognize what today's students want. We recognize the value we can add in that pursuit. And we recognize that it's our responsibility not to actually do things to them, but with them and for them.
Yes, I was so reminded of a quote that stuck with me over the last 20 years. Sometimes we think that we have to redesign the students to fit inside of our institutions.
Correct.
No, it's redesigning our institutions to meet the needs of our students. And that institutional, you still work in an institution, which doesn't make this job very easy. It's
Well,
culture change. It's creating mental models that are transformative, and that's more than just creating new policies and moving some furniture around, like I say.
it's so interesting that we expect the students to learn, but not expect the institution to learn. So we expect that we're going to have a syllabus and the students are going to follow what we think, not realizing that those institutions around us that are closing are those that didn't listen to the students. Those institutions around us that are closing didn't understand the value proposition and how to state it and how to cultivate the relationships with students and the community that actually add real value to a community. Education is a catalyzing factor to amplify, to multiply opportunity. But if ambition and opportunity never meet in the college, the community college specifically, but in the college, well, then basically, what are you doing? And that is why you see all across this country so many of our partners in education that are closing or merging or falling away, programs being diminished because they don't recognize who we're working with and who we're working for.
Yeah, yeah. And Tri-C, predominantly 85% of your graduates are staying in the region, right?
Right here in Northeast Ohio. And we not only are producing sort of those first set of folks that are going to go into four-year institutions, we actually are the lifelong educational partner for the people of this community. So they may come into our workforce innovation division and they might take a shorter term credential because they want to have work readiness now. They need a job now. And so they can get that shorter term credential and go right to work. Then they may come into the schools. We have these five schools so that they can get a degree because they want to see themselves advance and keep going. Well, once they have the degree, they can come back to our corporate college. And in our corporate college, we provide lots of professional development opportunities, the upskilling, as a professional, the entrepreneurship that if they want to start their own business. So in our institution, we're constantly creating opportunities to drive people back to our institution as their lifelong professional development partner. We're not just a pass through institution. For too long, community colleges have been seen as a pass through institution where you
Right.
get them out of high school, they come in for 2 years, get your basic general education class out, you move on. We're offering bachelor's degrees at community colleges, including this one. We just started to offer our first bachelor's degree in smart manufacturing this fall. And we're going to offer more bachelor's degrees, applied bachelor's degrees that don't move away from just the theoretical understanding of a thing to how do you actually move the world?
Whew. Oh, I might need to take a break and get a sip of water here and get that is some heavy stuff. And I know that you're a writer and you're somebody that does a lot of capacity building out there as well. I follow you all over there. I'm renting a lot of space from you, brother. Not only a maker of happen, but I think you're a maker of good trouble. You're
Yeah.
making some really good, and you've written about that unchallenged narrative in
Yes.
higher education. Um, Talk about that. What are the narratives that you believe that need to be reconsidered at
Well,
the moment or dismantled altogether?
Well, first of all, this idea that students are aimlessly needing to wander and to, sit under a tree and wait for the apple of inspiration to fall out of the sky, and all of a sudden we've done something for them after taking their money, and ultimately they're still driving Uber Eats and DoorDash. The fact is, we've got to challenge the narrative that says that we are the sage on the stage and not the guide on the side. We've got to challenge the narrative that all of sort of how we move forward can only be found in higher education. My first hires here at this college were absolutely not from higher education. When I was looking for somebody to help us set up a pipeline with our K-12, I went and got a former superintendent of K-12. When I was looking to redesign our workforce area, I went and got a vice president from the Chamber of Commerce that works with all the businesses in our community, who knows all of the things that the business community needs from our students and for the educational experience that the students need to have while they're here. When I was looking for someone to help us with community engagement and strategy, I went and got the vice president of one of our major foundations, who did all the funding for all the community-based organizations who don't understand that we can actually help those that they provide direct service for. So when I needed someone to help us with government relations, I went to somebody who was in the government and brought them in so that we could actually have stronger relationships with our partners in government, to have the access to resources and to connect the dots between the agenda of sort of our municipal governments to try to help people and the agenda of the institution to use education as a pathway for opportunity. So the fact is, if we continue to think that the narrative of higher education should be stay in your lane, stay in your box, do what you do, and not recognizing that we are connective tissue, the important part of community colleges and colleges across the country today is that if we don't recognize the power of our being a connective tissue, we're missing a major opportunity to revitalize our region and be a critical key player in that revitalization effort.
So much to be proud of. You've got a huge wave of momentum going there. But like I said, you're also, you're doing the work, but you're also building the capacity for others to do the work very well. So somebody who coaches leadership teams across the nation, what are some of the critical competencies that a college president needs in the decade to come, right? What unlearning perhaps might need to happen? What are those competencies that you're teaching? Spill the tea on what's happening at Tri-C.
Well, I think one of the most important things that we as leaders need to do is learn, listen. I mean, that's one of the critical things that we don't do well. Oftentimes we decide what we think are going to happen, and then we try to get people to regurgitate what we said should happen. I do not believe in, sort of trying to get people to do what you want them to do. I believe, I don't believe in buy-in. A lot of people say, well, you got to get buy-in from one of the worst things that you can do as a leader is to focus on buy-in. It's not about buy-in, it's about co-creation. It's about having a vision and understanding data and building a case and then co-creating the solution and not just being a solutionist yourself. Because guess what? There's the people that have to do the work. So you can have all the vision you want, but actually you're not the one with the hammer and the nail, and you're not the one putting up the sheetrock. And so you have to make sure, as you are casting this wonderful vision, that you're involving the people that bring the vision to pass, and you're creating the conditions by which they can be successful. Oftentimes we give people a vision, but not really create all of the necessary conditions, the financial conditions, the morale conditions, the recognition of culture conditions. We have to do the work that allows us to move forward. And so sometimes that means going slow to go fast,
Mhm.
because sometimes you have to educate on the why and stay on the why until everybody is clear about the why and moves with a sense of purpose and urgency to take that why to how.
I just put a bunch of C's to your try C. You talked about culture, you talked about competencies, but I think you really punctuated well with the conditions. You cannot challenge people to do the work that is, nearly mission impossible today without the conditions to be successful in that work. And you're a leader that understands that and drives from both challenge, which means it, you you have a very direct force of here's what we're intending to do because we've got this bold vision, but it doesn't happen without commensurate support
Yes.
in the work. So, hey, we're going to wrap up here, but your peers are tuned in today and they're running fast and they're lifting heavy things. Well, uh, and a lot of it is around just the domain of hope,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, the world could use a little more hope. And I'm big on faith, hope, and love. I'm big on faith. The definition for me, faith is let's try. It sounds really simple, but let's just try, right? Let's get out there and try. And hope is, well, that didn't work. Let's try again, huh?
Yes.
And love is putting your dukes up and fighting for the greatest good of the other as other. So, for listeners out there that might need a healthy drop of just encouragement from you today, Michael, they're working perhaps on a large transformational strategy as well. What would you have to just encourage? What wisdom would you have for your peers in this space? Maybe in the next 30 seconds, and then we'll wrap up here.
We must never forget why we're doing what we're doing.
Mm.
People's lives are at stake. We are in a world right now that is under tremendous pressure, not just political pressure, but we see the wildfires that are happening in California. We have experienced the hurricanes that we had in Florida. We've experienced some earth shaking temperatures in Texas and other places around the country. We have been in the balmy cold all around the country. We have seen literally millions of people impacted by disease, famine, hurt all around our world. And ultimately, no one person can do it all. But together, we can find ways to move our communities forward. And if we can move our communities forward, we can move our states forward. If we can move our states forward, we can move our country forward. If we can move our country forward, we can move the world forward. But it does require hope. And
Mm.
that hope is not just a feeling, that hope is goals and plans and actions. And so in 2025, if we're going to thrive, we must have those goals. We must make those plans. We must take those actions because people's lives depend on it. And our true ability to love them is to really demonstrate how much we want to liberate people from oppression, from depression, from the kinds of things that keep them chained and bound. And we want people to be free. And so we as freedom fighters together,
Mm.
we as educators together, we as hope dealers together have the ability together to change our world.
Liberate on, my friend. Liberate on, Michael. Thank you. We've covered just a smidge, all that is good and productive. And I would encourage our viewers out there to keep Tri-C on the watch as a campus truly modeling an impressive way. Yes, of hope, but also goals, strategies, business plans, all that comes with moving an institution, the institution forward. You can find them on the web. There's some really good things out there. Try-C, I think, .edu, right?
That's right.
And to our viewers, thanks for joining us. This has been the show reminding you that everyone deserves deserves. That's our equity promise, to live in a community served by healthy leaders like this amazing human who are building healthy teams and leading highly reliable systems. Before we wrap up, I want to thank you for tuning in to the show. If you found any value, just do what the kids do, right? Hit that like button and leave a comment and post on your own social network. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Until next time, this is Dr. Joe on purpose to cancel any and all things average. Peace.